3 o'clock on this Friday afternoon. You made it. Happy St. Patrick's Day weekend as well for those of you who celebrate. And welcome aboard the postgame show. Along with Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Yours truly in downtown Columbia. Elijah is in downtown Nashville, Tennessee for one more program, as far as we know. I don't know. You lived there
good
for
luck
a
getting
long
me back,
time.
buddy.
I was gonna say, you lived there for a long time. Who's to say you don't just stay around this time? We'll find out. Just tune in this time Monday.
Yeah,
And
that's a cliffhanger.
We'll know.
That's a cliffhanger. I've got the equipment. Unless someone wants to come here and drag me back.
It's funny. Elijah was up late last night with another thriller at the buzzer at the SEC tournament. I thought we were headed to a thriller at the current game one of the quarterfinal, but in the last couple of minutes, the number one Auburn Tigers have decided to assert themselves, and they now lead by 9 as they get ready to shoot free throws. So I think
Janai
they're
Broom
okay.
happened.
But there's 3 minutes to play, so hey, a couple of turnovers and some buckets. You never know, but we'll keep you updated.
I saw a 10-point lead get erased last night in a minute 20 of time.
Right.
Like, that was – talk about something that was unexpected. You want to talk about an emotional swing in a building? Brother, you could feel it. As someone who had no dog in the fight, is just in the arena watching and loving basketball and taking notes, for a living. That was palpable. That was an emotional roller coaster of a game, even if you had no original invested interest. Well,
so today, again, Auburn is about to close out Ole Miss. They're now up 10, 2:54 to play. Next, is Texas and Tennessee. Tonight, Missouri and Florida, followed by Kentucky, who won that thriller last night, if you hadn't seen it already, and they'll take on Alabama. As of today, for whatever it may be worth to you, and for some it's worth more than others, as of today, Joe Lunardi, because of last night's win, has Texas as a 14th SEC school in the NCAA tournament. That's as of today. Now, they get a game against one of the best teams in the country. So it's going to help their net ranking no matter what. It will certainly be better for Texas to beat Tennessee in terms of Texas opportunity at the NCAA level. The ACC today, I think all 4 of these schools are now going to make it. So I don't know how much it really matters. Chapel Hill, I suppose, could still technically find a way out of this tournament, but I think they've done enough.
I don't think that. I'm kind of in the minority here, I think, based off all the bracketologists I've seen, because they're still stuck on one quad one win. Texas has picked up more quad one wins in the last 48 hours than North Carolina has accumulated throughout an entire
That's crazy,
season.
And I know
nuts.
Vital was
indictment on the ACC.
Vital was singing their praises yesterday. That they should get in regardless, and that they've won 8 of 9 or 9 of 10 or something like that. And look, if they beat Duke today, then perhaps that's all that matters. Even if Duke is going to be without Cooper
I think they
Flagg.
have to beat Duke. Yeah. If they lose to Duke without Cooper Flagg and Malik Brown, those are 2 starters.
Right.
With one of those starters being a potential player of the year, then I think the committee is going to kind of run tired of the Tar Heels shtick.
And by the way, just as we bounce around here, hold the phone here, kids, because Ole Miss is now only down 6, and they have the ball with 1:50 to play. So,
Janai Broom just threw up a Scud missile off of the backboard. My goodness,
not good. So, boy, if that 3 had gone down, that might make this thing something to watch.
That would have made things very interesting.
So we'll see. But Clemson and Louisville play tonight. They are definitely in this tournament, and one of them will play for the ACC championship tomorrow. So keep you updated on that. There is news out of the Big Ten today, and I got to tell you, look, I never want anybody to lose their job, but Fran McCaffrey, the headlines keep saying Iowa will dismiss him. Is he getting fired?
He's getting fired. Yeah.
What are we doing here? 15 seasons. He's the school's all-time basketball wins leader at 297. They were beaten in the second round of the Big Ten tournament last night by Illinois. McCaffrey, believe it or not, and some of you that don't know who he is, got ejected. This guy. His reputation is one, I'm going to be as nice as I can when I say this, Elijah, and then I'll let you comment. His reputation is one of being a massive tool.
Yep, that was
And that's
kind
me
of
being
the
nice.
verbiage. I was thinking, Fran McCaffrey in his time at Iowa wasn't one for making a ton of friends, especially in press conferences and his treatment of officials, right?
Treatment of everybody, his own
Of everybody,
players,
yeah.
yells at other coaches, screams at officials, is ejected. It's not uncommon to see him get technicals. Maybe ejections are more rare, but it's not uncommon. And I mean, there are times when he just seems to have just these epic meltdowns, man.
It feels like he blacks out in some of those.
Yeah,
rants,
man.
Like, he has to wake up the next morning and be like,
Did I do that? Did I do that? Right. But he's a pretty good coach. They make the tournament about half the time that he's been there. They've advanced a few times. I mean, he's a good coach, but he's a firebrand, And I would say for those around here who remember, I know y'all think I'm crazy. If you said, all right, compare him to Frank Martin, I might not say Frank's a teddy bear compared to Fran, but if on a 1 to 10 scale with 10 being really angry, Fran's a 10. I'm going to put Frank at like a 7. I would put Coach McCaffrey at a whole different level than what I saw from Frank Martin. Just again, that's just me. But anyway, Elijah, the bigger point is that's now a third Big Ten job minimum that is open this offseason. So Big Ten basketball is going to see some definite big time change here in the coming weeks with Minnesota, Iowa, and the biggest job, of course, Indiana. And we talked about it yesterday that Brad Brownell, who is from Indiana, has been heavily mentioned by folks up there as a possibility. I wouldn't tell you that Brad Brownell is any kind of leader in the clubhouse for the Hoosiers job. Brad's not lying when he says he's very happy at Clemson. But as we talked about, a kid might dream of being able to do a job like that if you grow up in that state, whether it's play for them or coach them one day. Timing is everything. The job is open. Brad is at the height of his powers as a coach. Those two things could merge quite nicely. They might not. Who knows? We'll see. But again, another Big Ten job is there's not going to be any SEC jobs this year, right? Everybody's good.
Nope. Because Matt McMahon got a vote of confidence, and LSU's kind of publicly stated their commitment to upping their NIL fund and their NIL game and a monetary investment into the men's basketball program. We got the same thing here for Lamont Paris, and really those would be the only. Well, no, just kidding. Rodney Terry. Even if Texas beats Tennessee today, Texas should move on from Rodney Terry. Because, and I like Rodney as a person.
What if they do make the tournament, Elijah? What if they do make the tournament? Which again is it's very real. It's
Texas should take the playbook or take a page out of the NC State playbook and not let a late season run blind you from the larger sample size. And the larger sample size does suggest that if you want to avoid sitting it out or sweating it out on Selection Sunday, which as of right now, if Texas were to lose today, they are on pins and needles on Selection Sunday. I don't think I disagree with Joe Lunardi about having them in right now, solely because I think Indiana is I like Indiana's resume better than Texas's, and I'm just morally opposed to putting a 15-loss team that didn't win their conference tournament into the NCAA tournament.
Fair.
But the thing with Texas is, too, they finished 13th in the SEC with a roster that if I'm ranking just on, production in college and raw talent, is probably top 6 in the league. They underachieved dramatically this year. I mean, think about it. Their leading scorer is a star freshman. Trey Johnson's going to be – I don't see him slipping past 6 in the NBA draft. Julian Larry and Jason Kent came from Indiana State, a team that won 30 games last year, one of the few 30-plus win teams to not get an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament. They got hosed, by the way, on that. They should have been in the NCAA tournament. They got Tremont Mark, who was a versatile defender and a very productive scorer at Houston and at Arkansas last year. And they were able to add Julian Pope, who played a lot of college basketball at Oregon State, was a very productive point guard. They added a lot A lot of talent. Caden Shedrick, even as disappointing as he's been this year, was a guy who came from Virginia and was a shot blocker and rim runner on offense, catching lobs, a very productive player at Virginia. They didn't get scrubs in the portal. They got some of the portal's most highly coveted names and still found a way to lose 14 games in the regular season and finish 13th in this conference. And if they somehow get it together to where they can squeak in to play a game in Dayton, you're the University of Texas.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
That should still be unacceptable.
That's a fair point.
You have more money than God, it feels like, on that campus. And as much as I know the players love Rodney Terry, and as much as Rodney Terry did an amazing job the year Chris Beard got fired in December, and he took them to an Elite Eight, they should have gone to that Final Four, personally. I thought that was one of the best teams in America. But that run was remarkable. You haven't seen winning at a level that the University of Texas expects to win at, and they should expect to win at. So, yeah, even with the weird Texas situation right now in terms of their standing in bracketology and the NCAA tournament, you got to move on from Rodney Terry if you are as serious as you say you are.
That's a fair point. We'll see. But, again, that one comes up next. Auburn leads Ole Miss by 5. Just over a minute to play. Auburn has the ball. We'll keep you updated on that one. We'll turn our attention on the other side of the break to Gamecock baseball. SEC play begins all across the league tonight. Our good friend John Whittle ready to break it down. Coach Maneri and Coach Rooney announcing a shift in the pitching rotation. What does John make of that? And can this Gamecock team score runs this weekend against a pretty good OU pitching staff? We'll talk to Mr. Whittle when the post-game show returns. Love telling you about our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, and they want to help you do more with your money. As a not-for-profit financial institution, they can return earnings to members as the form of lower rates and fewer fees. They've got some of the finest car loan rates in the state of South Carolina, and their plans let you go 90 days without making a payment. So you can secure that new vehicle and get yourself all lined up and be ready to go 3 months later. You can apply through digital banking at palmettocitizens.org or any of their 14 area locations. They've also, for those of you who want to save and make sure you're good and safe, 24-month term at better than 4%, but it won't last long. You can start that kind of thing with as little as $500. Any and all of your banking and savings needs you can get done at Palmetto Citizens. My wife and I are members. We love the service. Think you will too. Once again, check them out online, apply, learn more, palmettocitizens.org or any of their locations across the Midlands. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. 17 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Friday. Welcome back into the postgame show. Just gone final. Auburn beats Ole Miss 62-57. So the Tigers advance to the SEC semifinal. They'll await the winner of Texas and Tennessee. That game will tip inside of a half hour from Nashville. We'll have more on that throughout the afternoon for you. Time to talk a little baseball right now. Welcome back onto the program. Our good friend John Whittle. We're going to talk about Real Madrid and Arsenal in the Champions League, but that game's still about a month away. So don't worry, John. You and I, at least, will have plenty of chances to discuss that one. But I guess I should say first, happy conference baseball season. How are you?
Yeah, it's nice for it to be here. I'm doing wonderful. It's a beautiful day outside. I actually am getting a little yard work done before I head over to the field. And, it's a perfect day for baseball right now.
Look at you. That's good. I was going to do that, and then I decided not to. I'll do it tomorrow before I go to 5 points. Let's start with the pitching rotation.
Famous last words.
I know, right? How surprised were you, if at all, that Coach Mainieri and Coach Rooney have decided to alter the rotation and send Brandon Stone to the hill tonight to start on Friday and to open conference play?
I'm not crazy surprised. Brandon Stone has pitched really well on coming out of the bullpen these last two Friday nights. And, I do think that there's something to be said for being, a Friday night pitcher. We've seen a couple of those guys come through, and something that Ethan Petrie said yesterday really kind of stuck out to me. And I'll just read his exact quote, talking about Brandon Stone. He said, I call him an adrenaline junkie because his stuff plays up a lot during the games facing another opponent than facing us, referring to inter-squad scrimmages. When he gets on the mound against another team, all you can describe him as is a competitor. Yeah, I think he's going to be great for us on Friday night, is what Ethan said. And, there's something to that, I think, in terms of being a Friday night guy, especially when you don't have a, surefire first-round kind of guy who's out there throwing 96 with a banger of a breaking ball. And, South Carolina just doesn't really have one of those guys right now. Jake McCoy is the closest to it, and Paul Mainieri said he feels really comfortable on Saturdays right now. So, this seems like as good of a solution as any.
John, obviously they're figuring out the rotation a lot, and Matthew Becker, was the Friday starter for a while. Had a fantastic first two starts of the year, and then has fallen off. The command, that strikeout walk ratio that was so impressive the first two games kind of fell off a little bit. I still see a lot of potential in him. I still really like Matthew as a pitcher. Where do you see is maybe the best fit for him amongst the pitching staff, whether it be starting or maybe coming out of the bullpen and helping there?
Well, to your point, he pitched great on Saturdays the first two weekends, and then got bumped up to Friday and just wasn't nearly as good. And to your point also, they are going to use him out of the bullpen for now, and that's something that Paul Mainieri has talked about a lot ever since the end of fall practice. A few of us went to meet with him for a fall wrap-up meeting, and he brought up Matthew in a closer type of role, and has brought it up several times since then. So I think he's got. I think he really wants to see him there at the end of games, but he's also got to prove to be strong at the end of games from a mental toughness standpoint, and I think he's got to kind of build his way into that as well. So right now it's Brendan Sweeney and Parker Marlott, back there at the end of games, and Zach Russell flirting with that a little bit as well. But I think Matthew Becker can ultimately fit in that kind of spot as well.
Yeah, and John, just real quick on that last point, do you think this is something that could be one of those blessings in disguise ultimately for this ball club? Because, like you, I think a lot of us felt like, Becker is so versatile. So ultimately, could this, be something that everybody wanted all along, rather than looking at it as Matthew failing to secure his spot in the rotation?
It certainly could be. It just kind of depends on how he takes to it. He's had good moments and bad moments out of the bullpen. Some of his best moments were out of the bullpen as a freshman, but he's also had several really, really good starts too. So it's hard to say where he's going to flourish right now, but I do agree with you that maybe it is a blessing in disguise for him, and we'll kind of see how that plays out. And he may end up being in that what Brandon Stone was doing, or what James Hicks did a couple years ago, and being being kind of a longer inning guy in the middle of the game if a starter doesn't go deep. And, we've seen that a couple of times here early on in the season as well with guys other than Matthew Becker.
And John, too, watching this team hit, I think that's my biggest concern going into SEC play is just the question of can they generate enough runs against SEC pitching to be competitive in this league in terms of, year-long standings. But we've gotten, because of some injuries and because of just some lineup experimentation, we've seen a lot of different guys hit this year and in many different spots. In your opinion, watching this team hit, and with the various lineups that we've seen, do you think they can generate enough runs against some high-quality pitching staffs? Because it's obviously the rest of the year, it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, it's a great question, and they're going to have some of these guys who are supposed to be like real dudes step up, right? Like, it's not quite as dire as I think some folks out there think. South Carolina's 10th out of 16 teams in the SEC in runs scored so far, and before people say, well, player competition, whatever, I get it, yes, but most SEC schools have played poor competition too. So, we'll start to see what it looks like when it comes to SEC play. But the key is getting some of these guys who are supposed to be really good to be really good. Henry Kazmir was brought in here as a two-hole hitter. He's not supposed to be down there batting ninth in the order and hitting 208. Like, that's not what he's supposed to be. Kennedy Jones should be a little bit more productive than he has been so far. He hasn't been bad, but he can be so much better than what he's been. Blake Jackson has not been nearly what he should be. But in your two freshmen who are going to be playing a lot, Bo Hollins and KJ Scobie, they've been performing well for the most part offensively, but they're in for a rude awakening here in the start of SEC play. I mean, we can think back to what Michael Braswell was his freshman year going into conference play. I think he was National Player of the Week one time, and he was team's top hitter or second best hitter at that point in time. And I don't know that he put the ball in play more than once or twice that opening weekend of conference play. So, those guys have a kind of a rude awakening ahead of them. So, you just got to have some of these guys who are supposed to be good come through at a higher rate than what they're doing right now.
Talking to John Whittle, the Big Spur. Gamecocks in Oklahoma start conference play tonight at 7 o'clock over at the Ray. Staying with that theme, but taking it just to the catchers. They're not getting going either, and it only, to Elijah's point, it doesn't get any easier, but it doesn't get any easier physically for those guys as the wear and tear mounts up, as the heat, obviously, all across the South, John, begins to rise. So how much of a concern from an offensive perspective might it be when it comes to the catching position and how it could affect what they want to do defensively as well?
Well, I'm not trying to sound like as big of a jerk as I'm going to sound when I say this, but it can't get much worse than what has been at the catcher position so far. Especially from an offensive standpoint, guys just haven't hit. I mean, you look at Thomas McCrory, who has the broken thumb, but he's hitting 138. Max Kaufer's hitting 150. Ryan Bakes is hitting 125. They're not throwing out any runners. It's been 20 of 24 successful steals against them. There have been pass balls. South Carolina's near the bottom of the league in wild pitches, which, those go on the pitcher, but a catcher has some influence in that too. So, I mean, it's just we knew coming into this season that position was going to be a big challenge, and it has been so far. So we'll just kind of have to see who, if any of those guys, can elevate their game. And Gavin Braylon, the freshman, started looking a little plucky back there behind the plate and at the plate too offensively. So, if once they get him healthy, which is probably going to be a couple more weeks, maybe he can win the job. The production can't be much worse than what it's been so far.
And then, John, keeping it for tonight's game, Oklahoma comes in a really solid program and in the postseason every year now in the SEC. And Jay was reeling off yesterday the stats of that starting pitching rotation, and it's very top heavy. But when you've watched or Oklahoma this year or have looked at the numbers, what's kind of one thing that stands out that we need to watch for this weekend series?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number of strikeouts that they have is huge, and South Carolina's been okay about not striking out from an offensive standpoint. They've done a pretty decent job so far, especially when you consider what they've been in recent years. But these guys will make you swing and miss some, especially Kyson Witherspoon tonight. 40 strikeouts, 5 walks in 23 innings is pretty incredible. But that's something that immediately jumps out at me is just kind of the strikeout to walk ratio, which is actually pretty similar as a team to that of South Carolina. But I also, to your point, is a kind of a top heavy staff and maybe not quite the depth that South Carolina has. So you've got guys who you're facing who are going to be top caliber. I had somebody who follows the SEC very closely who told me that this could be the best pitching staff that South Carolina faces this year, which took me very much off guard. And I'm not going to put a crazy amount of stock into that just yet, but that's kind of what some folks outside of the program think of the top end talent that Oklahoma has.
Yeah, and again, Kyson Witherspoon, the starter tonight, a junior righty, 4-0 with a 1.17, 40 strikeouts, just 5 walks in 23 innings pitched. So a big task tonight. Thank you, sir, as always. Appreciate the time. We will do it again very soon. Enjoy the weekend and get that yard work done before you go.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
That's our good friend John Whittle, John M. Whittle, to follow on Twitter if you don't already, and catch his work every day. He and Hale and the crew at thebigspur.com. We'll come back. A few more thoughts on baseball from Coach Mainieri to get you ready, and remind you Stuart Lake is going to join Elijah and me coming up from the ballpark in the 5 o'clock hour. You are listening to the postgame show. Love telling you about integrated media. How you watching what you watch? All right. How you keeping your home secure? All right. And you say, well, I mean, do those two things go together, Jay? Yes, they do. With integrated media, one-stop shop for really all the technology in your home. All right. Even now, a lot of people's appliances connect to Wi-Fi, like your vacuum robot, your dishwasher, your fridge. All right, make sure all that's happening. Plus, your kids are doing whatever they do, streaming stuff all the time, gaming. You might be working from home. You're streaming all your entertainment now through whatever different devices, Roku, Apple TV, whatever. Make sure all that's working. Plus, you want the best picture, the best sound. You want video security for your home. They do all of that. Yes, they do. And they make house calls. See what they can do for you. 803-948-8327. The best in home theater, security, and so much more. My good friends at Integrated Media. 25 minutes in front of 4 o'clock here on a Friday afternoon. You made it. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Ed Bird at Master Control today. Ed and I are in downtown Columbia. Elijah is in downtown Nashville at the SEC tournament. Game 1 of the quarterfinals in the books. Auburn has beaten Mississippi 62-57. Texas and Tennessee are next. And then tonight it's Missouri and Florida, followed by Kentucky and Alabama. ACC today up in Charlotte, the semifinals. Duke and North Carolina, followed by Louisville and Clemson. And again, I think a North Carolina win, I don't know. I've seen different ones, Elijah. Some have them in, some have them out. A win over Duke probably gets them in. Then I would say all 4 of these schools are going. If not, it may just be Duke, Louisville, and Clemson that are the representatives of the once mighty ACC that needs to get better real quick.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at the TV right now. Pete Thamel is reporting that Cooper Flagg has a quote a real long shot. I didn't see long at first. I saw a real shot, and I was like, that changed from yesterday.
You don't need to play.
No, but
don't play.
You don't need to play him. It's not necessary.
And I don't think John Shire wants to. I think it's a story. And I'm not dogging Pete or anybody else because we're talking about it too. Yeah, he's the best player in the country, at least one of the two. It's going to be him or Janai Broom that win all these awards. I know Janai yesterday got the Sporting News National Player of the Year award. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. I was telling you, I'm fortunate to be a Wooden Award voter, and I'll vote next week on that. But I feel like one of those two. They're not quite as secretive, the Wooden folk, as the Heisman folk. So I guess I can talk a little bit about it. But
you can discuss it.
Yeah, but I'll let the weekend pass before putting in my final votes on the Wooden Award. But regardless, it's a story because of who he is and that he is seemingly the overwhelming favorite to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. So you got to talk about him. I get it, but it doesn't matter. I mean, look, Duke wants to win this event because winning the ACC tournament is cool. But beyond that, awesome. it doesn't have any bearing on their national seed, other than, again, as you and I said yesterday, potentially being the number 1 overall seed. But that just means you get an even easier 16 to play, and technically speaking, your region's supposed to be a little more navigable, but what are we talking about here, really? I just wouldn't sweat it. If
you're a true contender like they are, then it's not going to matter.
It doesn't matter. So anyway, thanks as always to our good friend John Whittle. We always appreciate his time. And let's get back to a little baseball. Ed's got a cut for us here. Coach Mainieri on the decision that he and Coach Rooney came to on making Brandon Stone the starter for conference play.
Well, I mean, he's been pitching great. Every time we've run him out there, he's been really outstanding. Throws a lot of strikes. He's got a good repertoire of pitches. He's got a lot of self-confidence. He just looks like a guy that could handle the Friday night situation and everything that comes with it. I have a lot of confidence in him. I think our team has a lot of confidence in him. And so, he's got a heck of a matchup, with Witherspoon. I assume that's who's going. I haven't seen the rotation yet. It's been what's the order? Ken?
Yeah. Witherspoon's and then Johnson on Sunday.
And then Johnson on Sunday. So, obviously, we got our work cut out for us offensively all weekend. They've got a tremendous pitching staff and strong bullpen. But this is the SEC, and this is what you get. This is what you sign up for. But I feel like Brandon is going to, be right in there and compete hard and believe in himself. And I think our defense has been stellar. And if we can play great defense behind him, I don't see any reason why he can't hold his own.
Elijah, and we'll ask Stuart more about this too, from a coaching standpoint of making decisions like this, where you put someone into a brand new role and you do it at what is, a crucial moment. I don't want to make too much of game 1 of 30, but I don't want to make too little of it either. Hey, Brandon, congratulations, kid. Go start off conference play for us here.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting spot for Brandon Stone tonight.
It is, yeah, but it's also a great test. And guys like that too, when you see like the stuff that Brandon obviously has, with the size that he has and the production he's been able to show in really big spots, you want to see how he does on a Friday night in an SEC opener. Like, it's a lot of pressure to put on him. Like, you're totally right. It's a tough spot to put anybody in, but like, this is what makes really good players, right? They say all the time, pressure makes diamonds. This is a really good opportunity to see what he's got in these type of circumstances, not just because you learn what type of pitcher he is, but you learn if you can rely on him to do this role the rest of the year. The Friday night starter role is a big role, man. Anybody that keeps up with college baseball knows exactly the importance of having a lights out Friday night starter. And let's say he has a great night tonight. I feel like you got to feel really good about the rotation at that point going into the rest of the season, when you're going to be pitching against the best of the best of the best in the entire sport on a weekend-to-weekend basis.
As a quick aside, by the way, I knew they had the same last name. I didn't learn until this afternoon that Oklahoma's starters tonight and tomorrow, Kyson Witherspoon and Malachi Witherspoon, are twin brothers.
Twin brothers, okay.
Twin brothers, yes.
I heard that. I heard the name yesterday when you were reading off the starting rotation. I was like, it has to be some type of relation.
Yeah, no, they are
brothers.
twins. So that's pretty cool. How often does that happen?
Yeah, one pitching a lot better than the other.
Yeah, so
that's how I can tell them apart.
Yeah.
This is their stat line, their ERA.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, otherwise you're not going to be able to tell because they're pretty much the exact same size, and they are twins. There's no question of that. But it's an interesting spot. And then for Matthew Becker, I asked John the question the way I worded it. I thought was what I was going for there. There was a lot of talk in the preseason, man, they'd rather have Becker's versatility in the pen, but they're just not sure what they have rotationally. Now maybe they do, but had he not faltered against Clemson or last week, might we be here? I think that's a harder question to ask.
I have a feeling that if he didn't have the outing he did against Clemson, and then in his last start, I don't think we're here, right? I think they probably put him there because they genuinely believed that it was something he could do, and they want to test him, right? There's a lot of that type of experimenting that goes on in non-conference play to see which pitchers pitch where and which roles. And that's what I've always found amazing too, is how differently pitchers can perform based on just the roles and how many innings they pitch, or maybe like the night they start. All types of factors go into it. I think they genuinely believe that he could have had that role this year, and when you saw him not perform up to par with his first two starts, then I think it became fair enough to see, let's see maybe if he can do long relief out of the bullpen, right? And then see if Brandon Stone, who's been lights out, can come in and fill that role if there's no drop off in his performance. So I think this is kind of just part of that experimentation process that you don't want to have to keep doing in SEC play, but in some years you see that it becomes necessary. It was necessary last year to have those experimental weekends against top-notch competition. So you hope we don't keep having the same conversation in, say, 2 weeks. But I mean, there's a good chance we might, not. And I think a lot of this is depending on how those two gentlemen pitch in their new respective roles.
More from Coach Mainieri on the other side as we get ready for the start of SEC baseball. You're listening to the postgame show. 10 minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Friday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Ed Bird at Master Control. Again, Elijah is in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, as Game 2 of the quarterfinals has just gotten underway with Tennessee and Texas. And they're knotted up at 4, but we're not even 3 minutes into the contest, so a long way to go on that one. And we'll talk more about it next hour, so I'll save it. But I told Elijah to put an EBPI forecast on South Carolina men's basketball's opportunity of making the NIT. And for some of you who haven't been paying attention to the story this week, you might go, wait, what? Are you crazy? Well, I am, but that doesn't mean there isn't a possibility. So we'll do that for you coming up in just a little bit, plus more of Elijah's breakdown last night. Well, he didn't have a breakdown, but
No, not a mental one. No,
breaking down
a basketball breakdown.
Breaking down what he saw at Bridgestone Arena.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Sure, some people were probably worried about me.
Well, I mean, you're away from home, even though that's former home, and you got folks close by. Have you had family and friends that have wanted to see you? How's that going?
Yeah, scheduling times to see everybody is pretty tough, but I know after the games tomorrow, because it's not going to go into the wee hours of the night, we're going to have a little get together. So
that's good.
We've got some plans in the works.
Okay, that's good. I mean, you make your sister take you out to dinner, right? Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think she actually might be coming to the games tonight. I know she was thinking about it, so I told her, if you're bored and have nothing else to do,
you can get a ticket.
Come get a ticket to the greatest conference tournament maybe we've ever seen in the sport.
Maybe so. One more from Coach Mainieri here. Cut number 6, please, Ed Bird. Is your team, Coach Mainieri was asked yesterday, ready to win close games against better competition?
And I think we're ready, and I think, again, it's hard to win college baseball games, man. I'm telling you, I've done this, I don't know how many games I've coached, probably close to 2,400, right? And I have a little saying I say all the time, it's hard to win college baseball games. You think it's easy, but it's really not. I watched a game 2 nights ago with my good friend Brian O'Connor at Virginia. They had a 3-run lead going to the 9th inning against Maryland. They gave up 3 in the 9th inning. The tying run scored on a pass ball with 2 outs and 2 strikes on the batter. And then they won in the bottom of the 9th inning. Guess what? On a wild pitch, And I texted him as soon as the game ended. I said, why is it so hard to win a college baseball game? But it is. It just is. The other team gets scholarships. The other team has good players. The other team has good coaches. They care about their program. There's no givens. There's no gimmies. So you just got to, I think we're ready. I think we're as ready as we'll ever be. And now we just got to go out there and play fearless and play with confidence and meet the challenge and compete as hard as we can each and every day. And turn the page when that game's over and get ready for the next one.
That's Coach Mainieri availability yesterday. And again, Stuart Lake going to join Elijah and me coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. So get more Nat sound, more pings of the bat, hopefully, from the Ray today. 2 numbers that stand out. John Whittle gave us one of them. Opponents are 20 of 24 in stealing bases against South Carolina. And then one that's different, but still. And look, I don't want to make too much of it because Carolina has gotten a lot more guys on base, but they've left 149 men on base in 18 baseball games. And that's a lot of guys that you're putting on and not bringing in. And I believe that's a real concern. Again, I don't want to make too much of it yet for a team that's 15-3, but against the best team you played, you didn't win a baseball game and you had opportunities, Elijah. You didn't bring those runners in, and now you start conference play.
That's how you lose 1-run games or 2-run games even, right? Like, I know in baseball all the time people talk about, luck and Pythagorean win and loss, but sometimes you have to create your own luck.
Yep, you do. So you get a chance, a little bit of a fresh start tonight in a lot of ways as the conference slate begins. We'll have plenty more from Coach Mainieri, and again, Stuart will join us in the 5 o'clock hour. A lot of basketball to get to. We'll talk some Gamecock potential, talk SEC tournament, and a whole lot more. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you this afternoon that are causing some issues on the roadways. Starting with one on Shakespeare Road near Humphrey Drive, South Carolina 277 at Hardin Street Extension. And then we got a pair of accidents on I-20 eastbound. One after US 378 near exit 61. The other before Monticello Road near exit 68.
Four o'clock on this Friday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the postgame show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia and from downtown Nashville at the SEC tournament. That's where Elijah Campbell is. Game 2 of the quarterfinals underway. Tennessee and Texas locked in a tight one, but it's still early. We're only a little more than 6 minutes into the contest. 11-10 Vols over the Horns. Come back around to that in just a minute. I just saw an interesting story, Elijah. Sometimes here at the top of the four, just some things that are going on nationally. Mick Akers is the UNLV beat writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And he is reporting this morning that UNLV's athletics director, Eric Harper, has gone to the Board of Regents, letting them know that they only have enough money to pay Dan Mullen for 2 years. And he signed a 5-year deal worth close to $20 million when he was hired back in December. He is scheduled to work through the 2029 season. But according to this report today, Eric Harper told his board, quote, "We have the funds to pay the coach over the next 2 years. We have been working with our donors to assist with philanthropic dollars. We have one that has already paid their commitment, and that money is an unrestricted line that will be utilized in the future to help with salaries," end quote. According to this report from Mick Akers, the UNLV athletics department is at minimum $26 million in debt, and it could be, depending on, I guess, how you – I don't know, man, how you work the numbers, Elijah, but anywhere from 26 to 31 million in debt. That's a $5 million range. I'm not good at math, but I can do that. They also want to raise ticket prices to assist with and generate new revenue. Now, they won 11 games last year, and including going 6-1 in the Mountain West. So fans, may be excited. They beat California in their bowl game, but it isn't like UNLV football is top of mind for a lot of folks out there. But I saw this headline go by, and I was like, wait, didn't he just – and I was like, yeah, he just signed. They have 2 years' worth of money in the bank. I assume they'll get this fixed. And there's a great irony to this considering the town they're in, but,
Well, that opens the door to questions that it would be asked to no other university in America, probably.
There's plenty of cash in Vegas, just not enough inside the UNLV athletics coffers. But did Dan and his agent, and I'm almost assuming that Dan's agent is Jimmy Sexton, because why wouldn't it be?
Whose isn't? Yeah.
Do you not have some idea of this going in?
Yeah, if they didn't, then that's an impressive job by UNLV to cover it up. I mean, most people that have real money issues, sometimes they're not good at covering it up. Some are, some aren't. UNLV is one of those that are, right? But that's such a wild story, and it makes you wonder what the hell they've been spending money on over there, right? Like, yeah, money can be tight for a lot of G5 schools. They're not producing a ton of revenue. And in today's modern college sports landscape, spending is equating to winning in a lot of places. So a lot of schools are trying to get really ambitious with how they raise money, and they're able to pay players and all of that good stuff. And to see one where it's like, hey, I know we signed this big-name coach to a 5-year contract. We only have the money for 2 of it, is some of the most outlandish broke boy behavior. And I know I can call it out when I see it, because I have exhibited enough in my life to where I totally understand and I can spot it, right? Like that is some egregious broke boy behavior right there. And if I'm Dan Mullen, I am infuriated that this ever saw the light of day.
Yeah, it's a great point, because that can certainly hamper a lot of things that you're trying to go out there and do. So just interesting. I mean, we're all familiar with Dan from his time at State in Florida. And I think he's a great football coach. I really do. He might not be the coolest person to work with, but I do believe that his coaching track record speaks for itself. Quite honestly, I don't know. I don't want to rehash, history too much. I still kind of think Florida made a mistake there. I think you just got to – I think you could have done more from a PR perspective with some of the things. Dan didn't say, I don't want to recruit. But fans just took that and ran with it, and ultimately perception becomes reality in so many cases. And I'm not trying to knock Billy Napier either when I say this, but are you really any better off overall program wise with Billy Napier? It doesn't feel like it. So.
I mean, they fired Dan Mullen for the years that Billy Napier is currently having, so I would say no.
Yeah,
I would say this.
And
has
I
not
like
been a net
Lagway,
positive.
And Florida finished on a high note, and that's all well and good. But anyway, so just something to keep an eye on. But UNLV is in some pretty serious financial trouble at this point. Switching gears real quick here, and I don't want to make this a headline or anything, but I don't know how I feel about this story. I mentioned it to Elijah. He had seen the headline go by, but I delved into it a little bit. So obviously this week down south of Jacksonville in Ponte Vedra at Sawgrass, the TPC is happening. Many people kind of call it the 5th major. Certainly the players love this tournament. It may be famous really just for one hole, but it's a really, it's a lucrative tournament for those who win it. All the big names are there on the PGA Tour. And this week, I didn't know this part, but the weekend prior to this professional event down in Ponte Vedra, basically at a club that is adjacent to Sawgrass, there's a huge college golf tournament that happens annually. And this year, the University of Texas won that tournament, and they had a big comeback on the final day to beat Alabama. I think Bama was – I told you 10, Elijah. I was wrong. It was 12. Texas was down 12 strokes on the final day and came back and beat Alabama in this. And they did it partially on the back of their number one, a kid named Luke Potter, who was the medalist this weekend in the college tournament. So they finished play in that one on Monday. And Tuesday, Wednesday, of course, are practice rounds and whatnot and some Pro-Am stuff. And, of course, this is now day 2 of the TPC. But on Tuesday, Luke Potter got himself in a little bit of trouble. I'm going to read here from the wire services. There was an incident where he heckled Rory McIlroy. Here, I'll read from the AP. Video of the incident spread on social media earlier this week. McIlroy, playing a practice round at Sawgrass, hit a drive on the 18th hole into the water, then immediately turned back, walked over to Potter standing outside the ropes, asked for his cell phone, took it, and walked away. It wasn't clear in the video what Potter said, but Golf.com reports that he referenced the 2011 Masters when McIlroy melted down on the back nine Sunday, shot an 80, and finished 10 shots behind winner Charles Schwartzel. it goes on to say that Potter was later escorted off the course by attendants. His phone was returned to him. Later, he was on the Golf Channel, and he said, quote, "Look, I just made a mistake, and I take ownership for it. I apologize for it. That's about all that needs to be said. It's just a good learning experience. Yeah, I apologize." Now, apparently, Elijah, his head coach, John Fields of Texas, and the Texas program, arguably the best in the country. It's certainly one of the 3 or 4 best in the country. John Fields said to golf.com, quote, "He's got a hole in his heart. He had no idea what was coming out of his mouth was going to result in this fashion. With regards to our program, it's embarrassing. It is particularly sensitive to me because our program is built on respect for the game, and I would tell you that we coach 18 to 22-year-olds on a normal basis, and they don't always make the right call, and that's my responsibility as a coach. And when they do make a mistake, it's a learning moment." The coach went on to say that and I'm sure he didn't say he made Luke Potter do this, Elijah, but it says Potter sent written apologies to McIlroy, to PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan. I know one other report that I'm not reading from right now said that he sent one to the tournament director at Ponte Vedra and said that any other discipline for Luke Potter will be handled internally. I don't want to make too much. I know I just gave a lot of detail there. If this is just a fan who, you and I were talking about this morning, if this is some fan who's had a couple of beers on a Saturday at a tournament like this, or like the one out in Phoenix, or even down at Hilton Head, because this would never happen in Augusta, because not only will they escort you out, you'll never come back.
Banned. They will ban you.
But, look, heckling is part of it. I suppose on a Tuesday practice round where there's very few people around, and I would imagine Rory is savvy enough to understand that maybe this was the Texas golf team that's out there. I've seen some people on Twitter, and again, it's Twitter. Oh, Rory's being soft. Who cares? He probably doesn't, other than who did it. And I don't know where I fall on this. I'm probably more like the coach. Like, dude, you're a golfer, and your hope is that in a couple of years you're going to be one of these guys. What are you doing heckling not just any golfer, but at least at this point in time, on the PGA Tour, one of the 2, 3, certainly, I would say Rory and Scotty are probably the 2 most currently recognizable faces of the PGA Tour. I'm not quite sure where this kid's head was at the time.
No, I mean, it's dumb. And you hope for him this could be a learning lesson to, I guess, kind of keep your mouth shut and don't disrespect other people in their place of work. But I'm with you in this, where I don't think it's Rory being soft. It sounds like this kid probably was feeling himself a little bit too much, after a successful week with his team. Felt like he could be funny or something like that. The quote from the coach where he's talking about he didn't understand the words coming out of his mouth would have the impact it did. Well, that's a life lesson, because a lot of times in life we say things that we don't think are going to be having those implications because we didn't think it through.
Right.
We thoroughly didn't think it through to where if that was said to me, how would I handle it? So, I don't know, maybe this teaches him a nice little lesson in empathy and doing to others as he once done unto himself. I think this is a fair G-checking, and I got nothing against Rory for doing what he did.
Well, and I thought you made a good point when you and I were talking, and I want you to share about sometimes letting this go for a kid this age relative to not.
Yeah.
When you said, call him out on it. Don't let him just walk off. I mean, when he's going to be this one day, don't let it go. It's no big deal, man. No, it is. It is.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is. It's gonna. It could ruin his reputation too. I mean,
it's gonna hurt. I mean, people are gonna know. The whole tour is going to know when he gets out there. Oh, you're the guy. That's what for a while. This is a stigma. This is on you. This is dare I say, this is like and people know what I mean by this. This is a scar. When you have like elbow surgery, you've got that scar, and it's there. Nobody's going to like hold it against you per se, but it's right there to remind everybody, oh, you're that guy. Yeah, they're going to know.
It's the first impression.
Yeah, they're going to know, oh, you're Luke Potter. You're the guy who Rory took your phone like a little 4-year-old, you know,
and scolded you
and
because
scolded
you were being an a-hole.
And then your coach made you write letters. Because if the coach didn't care, who knows? By the way, I mentioned earlier, did Rory know who this guy was? He was asked twice about this in his most recent presser. The first time he said, I don't want to talk about it. But then the second time when he was asked specifically if he knew who it was that heckled him, he just answered, I'm really happy I shot 67 today. I think if he had wanted to, he probably could have gone, I had no idea, just some dude. I got
this punk kid.
Again, Rory pays attention to what's up. And again, a lot of these guys, they know who the hot college golfers are. They know who the guys are going to be that are going to be starting to make a name for themselves and try to get on the tour. This is what they do. You know,
it is.
This is what they do.
They're aware.
And again,
it's a network. The sport's a whole network.
Absolutely. So a good teaching moment for sure for this kid. But I'm just trying to figure out, bro, what were you thinking, man?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like, dude, you had to have been raised better.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know better. You just did it, and I was like, I hope it wasn't like tequila that made him do it on a Tuesday morning. But we'll find out.
We might have bigger issues afoot if it was a tequila, fueled rampage that he had at Rory McIlroy on like you said, on a Tuesday morning.
Yeah, could we? We'll see. Could we see
might
South
have
Carolina?
Some meetings that are necessary.
Could we see South Carolina in the NIT? Elijah is going to tell you what he thinks when the post-game show returns. A lot of us know we might need a new set of wheels. A lot of us know it's more difficult than ever to pay for some of those things. Well, that's where Palmetto Citizens comes in. There is no better place than Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union for you to finance your next vehicle. Palmetto Citizens offers the same low rates on new to 2021 models. They've got fantastic options for older vehicles as well, especially if there's a new, younger driver in your household. And plans come with no payments for up to 90 days. Plus, at Palmetto Citizens, they can finance over 100% of the retail or purchase price on those new to 21 models. They've also got a lot of other great options for you, including some great coverage and insurance that dealerships simply cannot beat. So shop the Midlands for that next vehicle. Then stop into any of the 14 convenient Palmetto Citizens locations and see how much you can save, or you can apply online right now. Learn more at palmettocitizens.org. Welcome back into the post-game show on this Friday. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Ed Bird at Master Control. Appreciate him. Elijah's in Nashville. Ed and I are here in downtown Columbia. Tournament action going on right now. Tennessee leads Texas 29-22. 6.5 minutes to play first half. That's a quarterfinal game. And at the Big Ten tournament, Wisconsin is all over UCLA, 65-51. These are two tournament teams. But Wisconsin right now is putting a hurting on the Bruins.
I thoroughly enjoy watching Wisconsin play. This is the most anti-Wisconsin team that I think anybody has seen in the last 20-plus years of college basketball. They're usually a slow it down, lower scoring output type basketball team. This team can score in bunches, man. John Tonje, who I gave him an All-American vote for the voting that was due on Sunday this week for the U.S. Basketball Writers Association, and I was filling out my ballot, and I gave John Tonje an All-American vote. That guy is good enough. He is an electric scorer. And fun fact about him, he was at Missouri last year.
Yeah.
And he got hurt early in the season. And then, Missouri had an 0-18 season, had two guys get hurt early on that end up getting massive awards. Like Caleb Grill, only played 10 games last year. He's the SEC Sixth Man of the Year this year. John Tonje got hurt at the beginning of the year. He is at one point in the year he was the leading Big Ten scorer, but he's first team All Big Ten. And if a lot of voters feel like I do, he's an All-American. So that's just a picture of what Missouri's season last year was supposed to be and what it ended up turning out to be.
That's kind of funny, yeah.
But Wisconsin, if you like high-scoring basketball, and I can't believe I'm saying this sentence at any point in my life, Jay Phillips, watch Wisconsin.
How about that?
They can score, man. They're a fun team.
Yeah, and you don't mean the Bucks. This is the Badgers.
No, absolutely not. No, I'm not talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm talking about John Tonje in the Wisconsin Badgers.
All right, so for those who have missed the story, and again, we're keeping an eye on Texas. I don't expect Texas to win this game. Tennessee's a better basketball team. But Texas is playing good basketball. They've beaten Vanderbilt, and then they beat Texas A&M yesterday. So they've got two nice quad one wins here in this event. And because of yesterday's win, at least for today, Joey Brackets put Texas into the field of 68. He has them going to Dayton. And if that holds, that's 14, you heard me right, 14 Southeastern Conference schools that will be headed to the NCAA tournament. And again, I'll hand it to Elijah now to give you the rest, but if that were to happen, it looks likely that South Carolina men's basketball is going to the NIT. I'll let you explain, sir, and then give your opinion on the likelihood.
Yes. I discovered that I spoke rather erroneously yesterday when I said it was the Power 4 conferences that were getting two auto bids. Apparently, it was just SEC and ACC. I read a couple more things where it was just SEC and ACC are getting two auto bids to the NIT to the two highest ranked teams that did not make the NCAA tournament. And by ranked, I just mean in the standings, right? So not a ranking, but the two highest teams in the standings that did not get bids to the NCAA tournament would get automatic bids to the NIT regardless of record. And I'm sure our listening audience knows, and if you don't, there are 16 teams in the SEC. If Texas is the 14th team in the SEC to get into the NCAA tournament, then the two auto bids would go to the two remaining teams, right? Which would be LSU and South Carolina. As it stands right now, because LSU finished in the standings above South Carolina, LSU locked into the NIT. If South Carolina wants to play in the NIT, then you are really wanting Texas to win this game. You are currently pulling for Texas to pull this game out and keep upping their chances of being able to make it into the NCAA tournament. They might get in with a win today. A win today against a Tennessee team that is 25-6, that has been in the top 10 all season long. It was at number 1 at one point, a team that I think has a legitimate shot still to be a 1 seed in this tournament if they were to win the SEC tournament. But as it stands right now, if I'm putting a percentage point on it, you assign me the task this morning to put a percentage index on South Carolina participating in the NIT next week. And I'm putting that, it started before this game at a 35% chance.
Oh,
Because I didn't think Texas. I still don't believe Texas is winning this game.
right.
I bumped it up to 38 because Texas is playing well right now. They're in it. So I bumped it up a little bit, like a smidge, not much, because I still.
That's like a 10% bump. I'll give you that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a significant bump.
But also not getting, putting the cart ahead of the horse here. But with Texas, I still thoroughly understand. They played in a double overtime game yesterday. They had a not a necessarily wire-to-wire win against Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt gave them a decent game. So this is a Texas team that since Wednesday at about, 3:45 Eastern, has played a grand total of 90 minutes of basketball.
Yeah.
I expect Texas to be missing a lot of jumpers in the second half.
They're going to have the dead legs, man.
Now.
Yeah.
They're going to have dead legs. They're playing on adrenaline right now. Trey Johnson has hit a couple of absurdly tough shots. One, there's a three-pointer in the corner where he had two Vol defenders having hands in his face. And that's what that kid does. But they're going to hit a wall at some point in the second half, and if they don't hit a wall and end up winning this game, that makes it even more impressive of a feat, making me a little more warm to the idea that they don't have to make it to Sunday to get in. But it still, I think, solely hinges on this Tennessee-Texas game right now. This SEC tournament game that is currently being played, Jay Phillips, I believe has a significant impact on South Carolina playing in the NIT. Not a direct correlation, but a significant one, because there's still opportunity for bid thievery, especially in the Mountain West. The Mountain West Conference every year seemingly steals a bid or two in the NCAA tournament. Like if we are actually charging conferences criminally with stealing bids, the Mountain West over the last 20 years has stolen enough to for us to justify locking them away and throwing away the key. And Boise State's that team, because Lenardi has Boise State as the first team out. They play in the Mountain West semifinals tonight. They just got done beating San Diego State, and the New Mexico's the number 1 overall seed in that tournament. If Boise State wins, I think Texas or North Carolina gets booted. And it's looking increasingly so that if Texas wins this game, North Carolina would be the team booted, not Texas. But given net ranking, even though the resume for North Carolina is just so bad for a tournament team, but maybe brand power rules in those decision rooms. The fact that Bubba Cunningham is, in the committee room, and not just in the committee room, he's like the head of the committee room this season. Maybe that plays into North Carolina getting a little bit favorable judgment. But yeah,
I think there's a little mental, a little subconscious bias that could be at work for North Carolina.
I believe so too, thoroughly, 1,000%. How else would a team? Yes, I get that North Carolina's top 40 in net, and historically speaking, teams that are top 40 in net get into the NCAA tournament.
And they're playing well at the right time. They are. And if they beat Duke today, I think they do it.
Certainly, that'd be big.
But we'll see. All right, so I got to hit a break. But for you, Elijah, I even smell a flash poll perhaps coming on Twitter here. So Carolina could make the NIT. Do you want that? That's that. Do they want that? Let's discuss when the post game show returns.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you. They're causing some issues on the roadways. Some places to avoid here. Hardin Street at Highway 555 at Colonial Drive. Minor accident there. We also have one downtown Hugie Street at Blossom Street. Got one on I-20 eastbound. That's just before the Monticello Road exit 68. And on 26 westbound before Sunset Boulevard and exit 110. Also have an accident on South Carolina 277 at Hardin Street Extension, Shakespeare Road near Humphrey Drive, and on Trotter Road at Garner's Ferry Road.
Welcome back into our program on this Friday.
Oh, we love sports.
Jay and Elijah with you. Ed Bird at Master Control. Stuart Lake, the coach, joining us from the ballpark, hopefully down on the field, right next to the batting cage. Ping.
Oh, yes, I can hear it now.
Yeah, so hopefully. All right, so I just threw out a flash poll, Elijah Campbell. If you wanted to retweet it on the station feed on the Twitters.
Absolutely.
I'll be happy for you to do that. Flash poll. Because of an obscure rule change, the Gamecock men's basketball team has an outside shot to get into the NIT if Texas becomes the 14th SEC school to get an NCAA bid. How would you feel if Carolina got in? 3 choices, Elijah Campbell. A, good. More hoops to watch. B, meh. It's still the NIT. Or C, there's still an NIT?
I like the third option there. I'm curious how much run that one gets.
So, if you are so inclined, at Jay Phillips 1075, and again, I'll trust Elijah to retweet this on the station feed 1075 The Game. But hit us up. You know, look, I'd be curious how Lamont and the players feel about this. And again, y'all, they're literally just going to halftime. But it's a close game. It's Tennessee 41, Texas 38. So, Texas, again, if they win this game, again, Joe Lunardi has them in today. But as Elijah said, it's not just what Texas does. This is, as any of you know, even if you very mildly follow this time of year, when you're a bubble team, yes, what you do matters, but it is also what others around you are doing that matters just as much, if not more. Because if somebody else goes on, again, as Elijah said, to be a bid thief, that's going to bump some things around. Hey, you know what? If other teams lose and it boosts you, again, it's not just solely about you. The only way it would solely be about Texas is if Texas wins this event. And while they certainly can, because the opportunity is there, you talk about a long shot. And tomorrow, after a team that's already, as Elijah pointed out, played a double overtime game against their hated rival yesterday, to beat this Tennessee team today, which will still be a very tall order, would be monumental for them. Then you got to go beat Auburn tomorrow. So
the number 1 team in the country, or it's not number 2 now, but the consensus number 1.
It's that kind of, but again, is the possibility there, even with a win today? That's their 20th overall win. That would technically be, 9 conference wins if you look at the 6 plus the 3. But I thought you made a great point earlier, Elijah. 15 losses, including 12, really 13 at that point in your league. Boy, that's just... I don't know. I mean, I get how strong the Southeastern Conference is from a net perspective in terms of what this committee's looking at. And I mean, I don't know. Should I even feel certain that there's going to be the 13 that Joe has? I mean, do I know for sure that Oklahoma is in this event? You know, do I know for sure Vanderbilt is in this event? Joe says so, but Joe's not on the committee. I mean, how bubbly are those schools too? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, really, it's just Texas. Georgia's gotten enough wins. Like Mike White made a really good point in the presser after the loss on Wednesday, where he says the loss that we had tonight against Oklahoma is considered by the metrics the worst loss we've had all year. That's still a quad one loss. It's still a loss against a team that ranks pretty relatively high in the net. And he said if that's our worst loss, I like it. I like where we're at. And then if you look at some of the wins they've had that have aged gracefully, Big East champion St. John's is one of them, and then beating Florida at home. So Georgia has 0 bad losses, 2 incredible wins. I think Georgia's a lock. Vanderbilt's a lock because of some of the wins they got this year. The win against Tennessee helped them out greatly. I think they're a lock, but the seeding, what hurt Vanderbilt this week was losing for seeding. I think they're going to get a really tough draw. We might even see them as about a 10, potentially.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Oklahoma got a lot of really good non-conference wins. They beat Louisville, which has aged gracefully. Louisville's now number 26 in net and finished 18-2 in the ACC. Yes, I know it's the ACC. The ACC is as bad as it has ever been ever.
Man, but 18-2.
18-2.
Come on.
A 26-6 team that is ranked. And for anyone who just watches Louisville basketball, that's a really good basketball team. And they also beat Arizona on a neutral floor, too, who is number 11 in net. Oh, yeah, and they beat Michigan. That one hasn't aged as gracefully because Michigan has completely drooled on themselves in conference play in the last, 3.5 weeks of the season. But, again, Michigan, still a ranked ball club, top 30 in net. So Oklahoma's gotten what I would consider enough wins, especially against some other bubble teams. Like they've beaten Arkansas on the road this year. They beat Mississippi State. That was a good win. They finished off the year by beating a ranked Missouri team, who I think is the dark horse to win this tournament that I've been covering. And they beat that Missouri team by 12 points. And then they beat Texas, again, the other bubble team they were with, at Texas to end the regular season. So I think with the win against Georgia, Oklahoma pretty much solidified themselves. And then with all those teams locking it up, really the only wild card becomes the Texas Longhorns.
All right, Elijah, sit tight. Again, we've thrown out a Twitter flash poll for you because of an obscure rule change. The Gamecock men's basketball team has an outside shot to get into the NIT if Texas becomes the 14th SEC school to get an NCAA bid. How would you feel if Carolina got in? A, good, more hoops to watch. B, meh, it's still the NIT. Or C, there's still an NIT. We will come back on the other side, get into a couple of phone calls, and give you updates on the poll. You are listening to the Friday postgame show. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Friday afternoon. Welcome back into the post-game show. Jay and Elijah with you. Ed Bird at Master Control. Coming up top of the hour, headlines of the day, 5:15-ish. The coach, Stuart Lake, will join us from the ballpark. Carolina, Oklahoma, game one of a 3-game set tonight to open conference play. Gamecocks have made some adjustments to the pitching rotation. We'll talk with Stuart about that and a whole lot more coming up in just a bit. In the meantime, let's get on the phones. Again, we're talking about an outside and slim chance that South Carolina could find its way into the NIT because of a rule change. Larry wants to discuss. He's up next. Hey, Larry, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, fellas. How y'all doing?
Doing well. Hope you are.
Great.
Yes, sir. Hey, listen, yeah, I'm an older guy. I'm 62. Okay. But when I was growing up, actually, the NIT was where you wanted to play because it was like the 4th or 5th place team in the conference, like the ACC at the time where Carolina was, could actually make the NCAA. It was like, who cares? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's Larry. Thanks for the phone call, man. I'm up against it here in just a second. Look, yeah, back in the day, getting to Madison Square Garden, and you know what he references. Again, Elijah, I'm glad they changed the rule. They changed it after South Carolina left the Atlantic Coast Conference, but back then only the tournament winner would go to the NCAAs. And back in 1970, I think it was, South Carolina was the best team in the country, lost a heartbreaker in the ACC tournament and didn't get in. And, it crushed a lot of people around here. And, of course, today it's just unthinkable. But I get it. And now even one of the things about the NIT that I don't really like is they're not playing it at the Garden anymore, at least the Final Four of the NIT. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of kids at least, if there's a consolation to it all, it's, hey, at least I can make it and go play in the Garden, right? And I'm nothing against Hinkle Fieldhouse, which is also one of America's more famous gyms. But I'm not sure kids are growing up going, oh, I want to play at Hinkle. I'm not even, sadly, I would think a lot of people haven't even seen Hoosiers, at least kids. I hope they have.
Right.
I hope they have. And maybe
highly encourage every basketball lover to do so.
You should, but if you haven't, I get it. But I'm not sure, with all due respect, that, oh, yeah, I want to go to Indianapolis and play at Hinkle has the same weight as I want to go to Manhattan and play in the Garden, or at least that's the opportunity that I get. Trey hits me, and, yeah, I was he and I were smart-alecking back towards one another. Trey says to me, Elijah, if you care about your team in the Europa League, you better care if your team is in the NIT.
That's a good point. The Europa League is the NIT
it is.
European soccer.
But I responded to him, and I said, well, my team is in the Champions League this year. But he said for now, and you get what I mean. I do, Trey, get what you mean. And it hasn't been that long. And for those of you who don't know, many of you have heard of the Champions League. It's the number one knockout club competition in European soccer. The Europa League is kind of like the NIT. But a few years back, the folks that run those tournaments in European soccer said, what we should do? We should save a spot in the Champions League for the team that wins the Europa League. Before that, if you won that second division championship, all it guaranteed you was, at bare minimum, you were back in the Europa League the following year. And Trey says the NIT winner should get an auto bid the following season. It might provide deeper roster retention. Trey, I would have zero issue with that. Now, part of that, it's a little bit different, but not necessarily, Elijah, is like, what if you stink the next year? Are you still getting into the NCAAs? How much roster retention is there? I suppose it's not quite an apples to apples, but I see at least where his head is. But he makes a good point that both are consolation prizes, so you may as well cheer for your team. And that I do buy in 100%, Trey.
Yep,
if you're in it, you may as well win. And that was always Dave Odom's thing. And I know, again, for fans around here, I totally get it. South Carolina under Coach Odom played for 3 NIT championships. They won 2 of them. But if you're in, you may as well bust your butt. I know back in 2016, we mentioned this yesterday, Elijah. That Gamecock team could not have cared less about being in the NIT. In fact, I think if you said, here's zero amount of care, South Carolina dug a hole underneath. You know,
and said, "Watch this."
Yeah.
Watch this. And Kentucky recently, it feels recently to me, but I mean, this was like what 10 some odd years ago. The year after Kentucky won the national championship with Anthony Davis, they were in the NIT, and Rupp Arena was going to be used, I think, for NCAA tournament games, so they had to play their first game in the NIT on the road at Robert Morris, and Robert Morris beats Kentucky. Yeah. And you could tell Kentucky just did not want to be there, because it's Kentucky. But like for South Carolina too, I mean, look, for lovers of basketball on your team, it's still an opportunity, because look, with the year that you had, losing 20 games, and so many of those close games, so many of those against elite teams, that if you were to have just had one or two different things go in those games, you would be in the discussion that we're talking about, like with Texas right now. You know, like then you're probably in. You win 7 games in this league, you're in, and you won 2 games, you know, by wide margins. If you get half of those 1-score or 5-point or less game losses to turn into wins, then we're having a significantly different discussion at this moment in time. Yep. But for everything that you've gone through, if you had a chance to end by winning the NIT, that's pretty cool. That's a good way to salvage the season.
It is. It is. And again, for those of you who just tuned in, not sure exactly whether or not Carolina gets in, we'll talk more about it coming up next hour. Keep it here. It's getting ready to warm up, probably for good. Just in case you still need the heat, though, then you're getting that system taxed a little bit. Might be time now to call AAA Heating and Air and make sure that your system is good to go for the coming warmer months. And they last a long time here across the Midlands of South Carolina. 803-677-1500. One of their great techs can come out very quickly, let you know, hey, if you're good to go, you're good to go. Great, right? If not, True Transparency Pricing can tell you what it will cost to get your system up to snuff. And if you just realize, I might be better off getting something brand new because this one's old. It cost me a lot of money. I'm not even sure how old it really is. Then Roy and Dana Finley and AAA Heating and Air offering you guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for a full year, $1,500 rebate, and a 15-year parts and labor guarantee. Call them up. See what they can do for you. I love what they've done for me. We stay nice and comfortable. 803-677-1500, AAA Heating and Air.
All right. 3, 2, 1. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways, starting with one on Decker Boulevard between O'Neill Court and Two Notch Road, one on Hardin Street at Highway 555 at Colonial Drive, Hugie Street at Blossom Street, Highway 1 at Augusta Road near Clemson Road, I-26 westbound before Sunset Boulevard near exit 110, I-77 northbound at Fort Jackson Boulevard near exit 10, St. David's Church Road near Kittiwake Drive, and lastly one on Trotter Road at Garner's Ferry Road. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways, starting with one on Decker Boulevard between O'Neill Court and Two Notch Road, one on Hardin Street at Highway 555 at Colonial Drive, Hugie Street at Blossom Street, Highway 1 at Augusta Road near Clemson Road, I-26 westbound before Sunset Boulevard near exit 110, I-77 northbound at Fort Jackson Boulevard near exit 10, St. David's Church Road near Kittiwake Drive, and lastly one on Trotter Road at Garner's Ferry Road.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Friday. It's also the final hour of the post-game show. Welcome back in along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Elijah is still live throughout the weekend in Nashville, site of the SEC men's basketball tournament. Ed Bird running master control for us here today. Right after we're done, at least about a half hour after we're done, give or take, it'll be time for Carolina baseball. The Gamecocks and the Oklahoma Sooners open Southeastern Conference play tonight. South Carolina making a change to the rotation from what Coach Mainieri and Coach Rooney have been sending out of late. Instead, Brandon Stone will get the game one start tonight. He's a sophomore righty, 1-0 with a 1.93 in 18 2/3 innings pitched, 23 strikeouts already, just 3 walks. He goes up against one of the best in the conference. Kyson Witherspoon, a junior righty for Oklahoma, is 4-0 on the year with a 1.17, 23 innings pitched, 40 strikeouts, and just 5 walks so far. So an 8-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio for Kyson Witherspoon tonight. Tomorrow, Jake McCoy goes for the Gamecocks. The sophomore lefty is 1-1 with a 4.74, 19 innings pitched, 38 strikeouts. Dang. And 8 walks.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and Kyson Witherspoon's twin brother, Malachi, will go tomorrow. Found out today they were twins. Knew they were related. Did not know until today that they are twin brothers. But Malachi is also a junior righty. He's 2-0, but with a 4.00 ERA, 18 innings pitched, 17 strikeouts, and 11 walks. So he does not have the control that his brother has. But nevertheless, a 4-0 or a 2-0 record with a 4 ERA. Sunday afternoon's finale, we'll see Dylan Eskew go for the Gamecocks, 0-1, but with a fantastic 1.69. 16 innings pitched for Dylan, 19 strikeouts. A little troubling with the 12 walks in those 16 innings. Oklahoma will send Cam Johnson to the hill on Sunday. Sophomore lefty is 2-0 with a 3.93, 18 1/3, 20 strikeouts. 12 walks. Coach Mainieri, in his pregame availability, was asked, is the start of conference play kind of a fresh beginning for everybody?
I don't know if I frame it that way necessarily. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I will today. Come on. If I didn't tell you that the SEC games were a little different than everything else, then I'd lose a lot of respect from you guys. I'm exaggerating it. People don't come to South Carolina to be able to play against Georgia State and Sacred Heart. With all due respect, they come here because it's in the Southeastern Conference. This is where the best players want to play in this league, because it's the best league in all of college baseball. Every day there's the league. The ball game is going to be filtered with future major leaguers out there, and the pitching's going to be the best there is. The hitting's going to be the best there is. We're going to have the fastest guys, and this is where you come to play, to the SEC. So these games are obviously most important, and you can have a heck of a team and finish in the middle of the pack. You can have a heck of a team and finish in the lower third of the league. You can have a great team and not win the SEC championship and still win the national championship. So you just can't make more out of one game than it is. You know what I mean? You just got to go out there for 9 innings and battle as hard as you can. And when that game is over, you got to turn your attention to the next one. And that's the way I've always been with this league, and it's been fairly successful through the years. So I don't see any reason why to change now.
A lot of experience for him, not as much perhaps for a lot of the guys on the roster, but important, I think, Elijah, for the Gamecocks, who have only played 3 games against a ranked opponent. They did not win them. I don't think Paul was wrong earlier in the week when he mentioned that while the scores, if all you see are those numbers, were not necessarily very flattering to South Carolina. He wasn't wrong that they were all typically later inning games that got away from South Carolina's bullpen, which is a concern, surely. I'm not here to put lipstick on a pig, and you and I mentioned earlier, too. Gamecocks had, what my coaches used to call ducks on the pond. You got to bring those guys around, and South Carolina in 18 baseball games has left 149 runners on base. They're getting guys on, man. But that's a lot of LOBs, man, and you've got to do something about that. And with Oklahoma coming in as a top 15 team, you need to get a couple of these. You need to start feeling good about yourself because in the only true, at least at this level, measuring stick opportunity, you did not pass the test.
No, and especially the ones at home, too. Like, that's going to matter as well. Like, the SEC and the ACC are the 2 conferences where, you have raucous home environments regardless of the month, right? Regardless of the juncture of the season. These are baseball crazy conferences, and getting opportunities at home is going to be a big thing. If you can take advantage of those, you're going to set up yourself pretty nicely later on in the season when it comes to the SEC standings and your personal standing as it pertains to being put in the NCAA tournament at the end of the season. So a big opportunity tonight for this team, and the big thing to watch to me is not just hitting against really good starting pitching, because again, we know what's going on tonight with Witherspoon at the mound and how good he's been and how much they strike out batters. But being able to bring those runners home, that stat you mentioned, the 149 left on base, it has to make Gamecock fans feel a little queasy and a little non-confident about being able to bring runners home in SEC play or even get guys on base in SEC play. So tonight's a great test. These are the games that start counting the most. Would love to predict that they come out swinging and are able to get on base, generate a lot of runs. But because of the sample size, what we just know from the Clemson series, it might be hard. But they can surprise us tonight if they're able to string together some runs tonight and get on Witherspoon early. Then you got to start feeling a little bit better about where this team is at when it comes to hitting.
And Stuart Lake will join us in about 10 minutes or so to give us his perspective, and we'll get a lot more pings of the bat from BP, I hope, but those were some good ones that we just got during that sound from Coach Mainieri. But Stuart will join us coming up in just a bit. He and Derek on the call all weekend long. Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day, the Southeastern Conference men's basketball tournament rolling on today in downtown Nashville. Auburn has won game 1 of the quarterfinals, beating Mississippi 62-57. With 14 minutes to play right now, Tennessee is extending its lead on Texas, now 53-45. Tennessee. Oops.
Yeah, you got to specify in this matchup, buddy.
Tennessee had a 3-point lead at the break, and now Zakai Ziegler has just made a steal and a lay-in, so Tennessee is now up 10, 55-45. Under 14 minutes to play tonight in Nashville. Missouri takes on Florida at 7. Kentucky and Alabama will follow. Kentucky winning an absolute thriller over Oklahoma last night. A game they should have held on to quite easily. Then Oklahoma took a late lead. Kentucky, with about a second left, hit the game winner for an 85 84 victory. Tonight at the ACC tournament in Charlotte, it's the semifinals. Duke and North Carolina, game one. Duke without a couple of big stars, obviously, including Cooper Flagg. At least we believe that's the case. And then the nightcap will be Louisville against Clemson. Speaking of college basketball, as we continue our integrated media headlines of the day, and again, I don't know the wording here verbiage-wise, or verbally, like, as in a part of speech. Iowa has dismissed Fran McCaffery after 15 seasons. I can only think, Elijah, that the school is choosing to use that word in an official statement because he is the school's all-time wins leader in men's basketball coaching, rather than say he's been fired. But let's just call it what it is. He's been fired. He has 297 wins over those 15 years, so just a shade under 20 wins a season. They lost last night to Illinois, 106-94. That wasn't really a surprise. But Coach McCaffery got kicked out in the second half with 2 technical fouls for arguing with officials. And those of you who follow college basketball, even in sort of a middling kind of way, know that Fran McCaffery has a reputation for just extreme angry outbursts a lot of times, just at his players, at what's going on the floor, certainly with officials. I've seen him in the past, yelling at opposing coaches. He's angry, I'm not saying that's why he got let go. He's been a pretty good coach. This year, not so much, but I don't know if they felt like he's done all he can do for them. I don't know if I can't imagine that getting ejected last night, but maybe was that like you know what? We didn't have a good year, and there's Fran again getting himself run. Yeah, it's just probably time. But I feel like that decision was probably already made, but it probably made it a little easier this morning when their AD got up and said, "All right, time to move on."
Yeah, I think the Fran McCaffery experience being done is an account of just the lack of progress they've had in the last couple of years. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that Fran had 2 players, in back-to-back seasons, one Luka Garza, who won the National Player of the Year, and the other with Keegan Murray, who didn't win the National Player of the Year, I don't believe.
No, he didn't. He did, but he was an All-American. He was an All-American.
Yeah, he was an All-American. And I Elijah Campbell voted for him to be the player of the year that year. He was that good. I firmly believe that Keegan Murray was the player of the year in college basketball. And those resulted in very short-lived runs in the NCAA tournament, oftentimes one and done. That underachievement, I think, soured some folks, and then over the last couple of years, going 19-15 last year, 17-16 this year, especially after they started off 14-6, and even their last NCAA tournament appearance, they were 19-14. He hadn't won 20 games since the Keegan Murray team. It's going in the wrong direction, and I think they probably feel like everything has run its course.
And when you're a guy that gives an administration some fuel to use against you from a PR perspective, that's why I say, like last night, did him getting ejected seal the deal? Nah, probably not. But did they go like, well, yeah, all right, you know what? It's just as well.
Yeah,
that's kind of
definitely
how you look at
some hilarious irony.
Yeah,
definitely some hilarious irony that the last game he has, he gets kicked out.
Sometimes when you watch him, man, I'm like, bro, seriously, man, He just and his assistants can't even hold him back sometimes, No, it's there's been a couple, like you said, man, he's about to black out. So
because he gets in such rages. I almost feel bad for him when he does that. It's
sometimes, man, it's
sometimes in life it ain't that deep.
I'll be curious to see if he gets another opportunity somewhere, but he may. But that's now a third Big Ten gig that has opened up. Indiana and Minnesota are also vacant when it comes to men's basketball. Could be others. I don't know. We shall see here as the carousel begins to spin. That's our integrated media headlines of the day. 803-948-8327 for all your home theater and home technology needs. No one better in this town than my good friends at Integrated Media. Stuart Lake on the other side from the ballpark as conference play begins. How does the coach feel about Carolina's chances this weekend? You'll find out when we return. I was at Cato's Power Equipment today. You know, this time last year, I got my new Toro Time Master mower, which I love, and I will be using tomorrow. Today, I was in there for the first time since the full remodel. Saw Ben and Matt and the crew, and today, it's like I was at the toy store. I got a brand new Toro battery-powered blower that Matt was telling me is going to be more powerful than some of the bigger gas-powered backpack blowers that people use. So I will be reporting back on this very, very soon. Also got an 8-foot pole saw, and when I told my wife that we got an 8-foot pole saw, the first words out of her mouth were, "Sweet! I've been wanting one of those." So how about that, right? I go in, I get power equipment, surprise the wife all at the same time. Can't wait to use this. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, where they've been since 1984. My great friends at Cato's Power Equipment. Check them out. Welcome back in. Post-game show rolls on this Friday. Jay and Elijah with you. Stuart Lake set to join us here in just a second. Before we talk to Coach, go to 1075thegame.com. Click on our Gamecock Traditions over-under contest. This week, the over-under number is 15.5 innings that Gamecock starting pitchers throw versus Oklahoma. 15.5 over-under number of starting pitching innings for the Gamecocks. So check that out. You might win some cool prizes from Gamecock Traditions. Good luck. Always a pleasure to talk to the coach, Stuart Lake. Conference play begins. We talked with you last week, and you had nicknamed Brandon Stone the Eclipse. Eclipses are kind of rare, and now it seems like he is going to be one that comes out a bunch. He's earned the Friday night nod. Stuart, take us through this from your perspective.
Well, I'm excited for him tonight, and I think it's a good matchup for us with this Oklahoma team. That's going to be a lot of contact, not a ton of power. Kind of sitting here now watching BP, so very similar kind of to what we've been so far. But ever since Brandon came in at Clemson and just showed, I thought, tremendous composure. I thought just allowed us that night to stay in a game that we felt was getting away. He's been that same guy every time. So I was excited when Coach told me earlier in the week, hey, I think I'm going with Stone. Don't tell anybody. So when Becker ran out there Wednesday night, I said, well, I think the secret might be out of the back here. There's some stuff happening. But I'm just super excited to see how Brandon does against these guys.
Yeah, Stuart, I mean, I'm excited to see that too, and see if, we can get a solidified Friday starter and make sure no more experimentation has to be done from this point on. But when it comes to the bats, Jay and I were talking about it earlier today, and Jay brought up a stat that felt very mind-blowing, and that's that the Gamecocks have left 149 runners on base. Obviously, when the pitching ramps up in SEC play, which we're fully expecting, and we're going to see a dude on the mound tonight, from a hitting standpoint, as a coach, you watch this team in those situations where runners are on base or in scoring position. What's maybe one adjustment that you would give to them based off of just what you've seen in those scenarios this season?
Well, I felt like we really did it the other night in the big inning against Georgia State. What has frustrated me as a coach and frustrated me a little bit sometimes here, I hate taking strike one. I just feel like when you get in those RBI situations, try to get multiple swings when possible. And I thought we did that in that big inning, got some hits that kind of separated that game. This is going to be a game tonight. It's going to be hard to get a lot of base runners on. So when you do get them on, I love the way we typically have movement. You're going to have to take advantage of those because, as y'all been talking all day, Witherspoon is a special guy. This could be a first-rounder guy to see right out of the gate.
Yeah, again, those of you just tuning in, Kyson Witherspoon goes tonight 4-0 with a 1.17, 23 innings pitched, 40 strikeouts, and just 5 walks. So, again, 8-1 ratio. His twin brother Malachi goes tomorrow. The numbers aren't as impressive, but he's still 2-0 on the young season. Stuart, when you look at Matthew Becker, who you just mentioned a second ago there, and I asked John Whittle this a little bit earlier, there was maybe a belief from all of us, those of you who were closest to the program, those of us who observe it, fans, whatever, Matthew has a lot of pitching versatility, and that maybe it was the dearth of good starting pitching that forced him into the rotation, but then he faltered a little bit. Is this, or does this at least have the potential to be, kind of a silver lining for Matthew and the staff, that maybe being in the pen may better suit him and this ball club?
I think so. You remember when Coach was putting that rotation together, supposed to be Eli Drinback, Friday night guy, Matthew Becker, our kind of, Swiss Army knife guy in the bullpen, and all of a sudden, Drinback, Matthew's thrown in the starting role, did a great job his first 2 starts. Still, I get mad at Clemson because I felt like he pitched better than the numbers showed with the strike zone he dealt with. But I think we're a better team with Matthew Becker in the bullpen. That's not because he's not good enough to start. I just think he could come in the 5th or 6th inning of a game and close it out. And beside Brandon Stone, who's now in the starting rotation, I didn't think we really had another guy that could do that. So I sit here and, I got a lot of time to waste, I guess, because I start putting our bullpen together. And I'm thinking now with Becker, Marlott, Pitzer, I love Zach Russell. That dude's got an SEC fastball, and he's got to learn how to pitch in this league. But he's going to be a guy to help beside the bullpen. And then you got Brandon Sweeney, who Coach really wants to be the closer. So you're starting to kind of see this team roles start developing. That's pretty cool to do, and you think we're in the first week of SEC play and not late in the SEC play.
And Stuart, one of the things that this team's dealt with this year and it can be a curse, obviously, but also maybe a blessing to figure out who you got on your bench. The injuries this team has had, especially after the Clemson series when Talmadge had to miss time, Kennedy had missed time, Dalton missing time. It kind of opened up new opportunities for other guys on this team too. Who's maybe one of those guys that has played maybe earlier than expected or filled in some roles that maybe you didn't expect to see this early and has kind of impressed you?
Well, two guys jump out at me. I love Bo Hollins. I've watched him grow up since he got into town, played at River Bluff. I kind of gave him a comparison today, a Mark Grace type first baseman. He has made so many soft picks on our infielders' throws. I think he's brought a lot of confidence. Not that Ethan wasn't also, but I love left-handed first baseman. I love the fact that Ethan's been able to move back out to right field and not have to think about defense all the time as special a hitter he is. And then the guy that I think's kind of changed us in the last 2 weeks, I just feel like Jordan Carrion really complimented Henry Kazmark. The double plays, we got 15 now. I think we had maybe 5 or 6 before Jordan started getting involved more as a defender in the infield. So those would be my two guys that really, I think, helped us in this winning streak since that Clemson series.
Stuart, talking to Stuart Lake, he and Derek on the call, 6:45 tonight. Carolina and Oklahoma get it going at 7 over at the Ray. When it comes to the offense, we talked about the LOB numbers right now, but that means you got to get some guys going somewhere along the way. And you know, Petrie is the most known commodity on this team. Nathan Hall is playing incredibly well and maybe exceeding some level of expectation. So it's not hard for the opponent, as you well know. You've done this. You've scouted. All right, hey, avoid them. Let's go at the heart of somebody else. How are you going to get these guys going, and who might you look at as a couple of guys that are on the cusp that can start to make a difference for this team offensively?
Well, I think the easy one is tonight. Kennedy Jones or all weekend going to really have to step up, because I just don't know how much Ethan will even get pitched to as good as their pitching is in certain situations. But, you know, very seldom will I say the 9-hole hitter is going to be the key. But I just really, if Henry Kazmark could get going offensively, they thought he might be the leadoff hitter or at least the 2-hole hitter. So he's a guy that I feel like if he could really get back to where kind of everybody thought he was at Ohio State, and he could be a huge reason to have runners on base, so that when Nathan Hall and Ethan Petrie and even Kennedy Jones, we need these guys to better drive in runs and not have to feel they got to hit, you know, solo home runs to do that.
And do you anticipate that Ethan's gonna get passed over, if you will, more often than not? I mean, how early perhaps not, but how quickly might you think Oklahoma's coaching staff says, you know what, don't even worry about it?
Well, I'll be honest with you. This league is a testosterone league, so everybody likes to show they're the better man. That goes for coaches, too. I promise you, I was in it for 13 years. But I think they're going to really quick say, hey, let's make someone else beat us. As Coach Tanner used to say to me all the time, if player A beats me, I'm not sleeping tonight. But if player C and D beat me, it's part of the game. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see in the first – I think we'll see how they're going to pitch him when the first RBI situation comes up. Mm-hmm. But, again, Witherspoon's a strikeout guy, so they may feel that matches up against him. I'm really excited to see how that'll be, but I don't think we're going to see him getting pitched to as much as we have seen him, which has shocked me from some of the non-conference games.
Yeah, certainly. I want to get back to Kazmark real quick. Got about a minute here for you, Stuart. Real high expectations. Struggling at the plate right now, but we know that he can be productive because he's done it at a high level. When you're watching him at the plate, what's maybe something that you think just might be missing with him at the moment?
I think he just may try to get in this league, and I've seen it happen, but try to be more of a power guy than he really is. Because Drew Meyer and I talked about it in Charleston. I felt like he was pulling off some balls, trying to create more power than he needed to. And I feel like in the last few games, he's going back to who Mike told me was this summer when they were getting him, really a good contact guy, can hit 6 or 7 home runs, but is an on-base percentage guy. I feel like he's really going back to trusting his hands in the last few at-bats and not try to be – sometimes you think you come in this league, you got to hit home runs. And I don't think he has to be super successful, and that's why I think he could be kind of turning that corner a little bit.
Coach, appreciate the time as always. You and Derek have a great call. We'll be listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Awesome. Thank you. Enjoy, guys.
You bet. That's Stuart Lake, Stuart_Lake, to follow along on Twitter. And again, Coach and Derek on the call tonight at 6:45. We'll have it for you here in Columbia and all across the Gamecock Radio Network. Come back on the other side of the break. Updates from Nashville and everything else going on around the conference tournaments, and get you ready for SEC baseball this weekend. You're listening to the postgame show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways. But I do have some good news. It's that most of the backups that we've had within the last hour and a half have since been cleared, but we still have 3 active traffic backups as a result of accidents, starting with one on Bluff Road at Highway 48 at I-77, another one on Fernandina Road at St. Andrews Road, and lastly one on Gervais Street downtown between Hughie Street and Millwood Avenue.
All right. All right, it is Drive Around the SEC time here on this Friday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Ed Bird at Master Control. Elijah is in downtown Nashville, site of the SEC tournament. Quarterfinals underway today. And as we kind of anticipated here in the second half, the Tennessee Volunteers beginning to stretch that lead quite considerably now over the Texas Longhorns. Again, a 3-point deficit at the break. It is now 70-58. They are under 6 minutes to play. And that takes us to today's flash poll question. And again, an obscure rule change that most of us didn't know about until really like this week. Could, again, slight chance, and I bet you the EBPI revisions have already been made. But
a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
But if Texas gets into the NCAA tournament, and that assumes that the 13 schools ahead of them that are projected also get in, then South Carolina and LSU are going to the NIT because the SEC has 2 automatic slots allotted to the conference for the 2 teams, the top teams that don't make it to the NCAAs. Well, if 14 of the 16 make it, again, I can do the math. That only leaves 2.
Yep.
And so, now again,
like
the likelihood, I don't know. Elijah, you had it at 35% to start the show or to start the day. Then while Texas was playing after they did last night, you at least moved it to 38. Has the EBPI computer run its numbers again on Carolina's percentage chances of making the NIT, or really percentage chances of Texas making the NCAAs, which is probably the more important factor here?
Yeah, that's going down to about 33.
Okay.
So now like a 1 in 3 shot, of that happening. It's going to be down 12 right now with 5:17 left.
Yeah.
As tired as they are, and they look tired. The fatigue is visible on their bodies right now with how they're shooting and the oomph on some of the passes, if you will. That's becoming a little more evident, so I feel pretty good about Tennessee closing this thing out. And as it pertains to Texas' title chances, or not title chances, tournament chances,
yeah.
They still have a puncher's chance. I mean, they need North Carolina to lose.
Sure.
They are going to need Colorado State and Boise State to lose tonight. They are going to need, I'm trying to think of maybe other potential bid thieves. They need UC San Diego to win, and UC San Diego to win the Big West tournament to avoid having to put that team in bubble consideration with them, because even though they don't have the amount of Quad 1 wins, they don't have the same Quad 1 opportunities that Texas does, but they have been very successful in their Quad 1 opportunities, and they've won 26 games this year. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good team. You don't want it to get down to that too, right? That's something in the hands of a committee. Really, they're going to need a couple things to go right this weekend too to feel good about their chances of hearing their name called on Sunday.
Well, I threw out a flash poll because of an obscure rule change. The Gamecocks men's basketball team has an outside shot to get into the NIT if Texas becomes the 14th SEC school to get an NCAA bid. How would you feel if Carolina got in? That's the question. 3 choices. A, good. More hoops to watch. B, meh. Still the NIT. Or C, there's still an NIT. But right now, 51.4% Elijah Campbell, so over half say good. More hoops to watch. Just under 20%, 19.8 say meh. And 28.8 have questioned the actual existence of the NIT. So, and I've had a few of you that have said, hey, if you care about your team, you may as well pull for them. Hampton, our buddy Hampton, says more Carolina hoops and puts a heart emoji.
I love it. Love it, Hampton.
Greg, but Greg does not feel good about it. Greg says this team shouldn't get an invitation to any postseason tournament. Yes, they never quit, but they just couldn't win many games. That's fair. And I had one more that hit me. What did this guy say?
Fair
Quincy. Quincy says they came for the opportunity to play and compete, right? So, you know, you may as well go ahead and win it. Yeah, I don't disagree, Quincy. And really with what Greg says, look, Greg, Elijah and I talked about this. It's not like Carolina, quote, qualified because of their record or just missing, you know, the bubble for the NCAA. The SEC found a way to get this rule written. And South Carolina could potentially benefit from it.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree. A team that goes 2-16 in conference regular season play and then loses its opening game of the tournament, I don't disagree. You haven't really earned it on the floor, but they didn't. You know, the Gamecock men's basketball team, Elijah, didn't write the rule. So
they didn't make this change.
Yeah.
No. What this really does is kind of highlight how silly the change is.
Agreed.
I mean, especially considering there are going to be some teams that won smaller conferences in the regular season that are going to be left out because of it. Like, they're not going to get spots because of the SEC and ACC taking 4 bids in this instance, a year in which 2 SEC teams that get them would not have normally made them. They will be bid thieves on their own. So that's really unfortunate. That's really, nationally, that's the biggest part of this story, is that some teams are going to get hosed of a chance to play in the NIT, and those schools would really, really want to do it.
Right. But don't blame the Gamecocks or LSU, who's not good either. You know,
no.
And LSU's going. It feels like LSU's in. It's going to be Texas and LSU or LSU and Carolina, right? Unless something just dramatically changes over the next couple of days. Because, again, I think the other 13 are in. Speaking of those others, again, game 1 of the quarterfinal was earlier today. Auburn edging Ole Miss 62-57. The Tigers await the winner of this game being played right now with, again, Tennessee up 12, 75-63. They've just gone to the under 4 timeout. Tonight, Missouri will take on Florida. Gators 8.5-point favorites in that one. But remember, Mizzou went down to Gainesville and won a thriller down. Actually, not just a thriller. Mizzou kind of owned that game, if I recall.
They got up big. Got up big early and fought a ferocious Gator comeback.
Yeah, Florida's good about that late game comeback, aren't they? And then
they are.
Alabama tonight will take on Kentucky, who won their own thriller last night, did the Cats against Oklahoma. Alabama, a 7.5-point favorite in this one, but Kentucky will have the overwhelming fan support at Bridgestone Arena, and I look forward to Elijah's YouTube channel recaps of all of these once we are done. We'll get you set up for SEC baseball this weekend as the drive around the league continues. Love telling you about Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, how they can help you with any and all of your banking needs. My wife and I have been members at Palmetto Citizens for a few years now, and I still remember our first visit. Like, just, wow, this was easier and better than I had hoped. And, I had pretty high expectations, and now we've been doing it for a while, so I can speak firsthand to the great customer satisfaction at Palmetto Citizens. Whether it's checking, savings, credit cards, car loans, student loans, home equity lines of credit, whatever it is, even saving. Listen, they'll even reward you for saving. I don't have time to tell you right now, but if you go to palmettocitizens.org, they've got a lot of programs that reward you for saving money. And it's more money in your pocket, right? I mean, who doesn't want that? So whatever it is, when it comes to banking, see if you can do it better with Palmetto Citizens. Chances are pretty good that you can. PalmettoCitizens.org, 14 locations across the Midlands. Palmetto Citizens, achieve your potential. All right, welcome back in. Final few minutes on this Friday. Jay and Elijah with you. Ed's at Master Control. Again, Gamecock baseball coming your way at 6:45 with a 7 o'clock first pitch. You can get involved in a couple of things going on with Gamecock baseball. First, the Gamecock Traditions Over-Under Contest. Go to 1075thegame.com. Click on that, the Gamecock Traditions Over-Under Contest. This week's pick, over-under 15.5 starting pitching innings for the Gamecocks. Over under 15 and a half starting pitching innings for the Gamecocks. And you can also get involved in the Palmetto Citizens Grand Slam giveaway. If a Carolina hitter hits a grand slam, you could win cash, $25 per game. We've had a couple of them this year already.
We have.
Yeah.
It took all the way till Hoover last year.
I know,
for us
man.
to get
It was
one.
crazy. We've already had 2 this year, I believe, but the pot is currently at $75. Register at 1075thegame.com. All right. Baseball this weekend across the conference, and I'm going to give you the final poll results because I think it has like 1 minute left, so I'm going to let it run through, Elijah. Baseball this weekend. We've already got one that's nearly done. Mississippi hosting Arkansas. Ole Miss leads 10-5, bottom 8 in Oxford. Mississippi State hosting Texas. State is up 4-2, bottom 3. Just underway in Baton Rouge. No score in the first. LSU and Missouri. First pitch from Athens in just a couple of minutes. 6 o'clock, Georgia and Kentucky. 6:30 tonight, Tennessee hosting Florida. That should be a good one. Down in Auburn tonight, Auburn is hosting Vandy, and A&M will host Alabama tonight. That one starts at 7 o'clock as well. And again, Carolina and Oklahoma. And one more time on the matchups for you in the Gamecocks Sooners series. Brandon Stone, if you haven't heard, Brandon Stone will get the start tonight for Coach Maneri. He and Coach Rooney believing that Brandon's done enough to get that start tonight. 1-0 with a 1.93, 18 2/3, 23 strikeouts, 3 walks, going up against Kyson Witherspoon, one of the best in the conference. 4-0 with a 1.17, 40 strikeouts, 5 walks in 23 innings pitched. So, big stuff there. Tomorrow, Jake McCoy for Carolina. Kyson Witherspoon's twin brother, Malachi, will start for the Sooners. Dylan Eskew will go against Cam Johnson on Sunday. But again, tonight, Brandon Stone versus Kyson Witherspoon. All right, we've, by the way, update as we continue to drive around the SEC. Update from Nashville, Elijah, Tennessee, comfortably ahead now, 78-67. They've got the ball. We've gone under a minute and a half to play, so Texas run at the SEC tournament seems nearly done. And as you pointed out, not only did they have a nice win on Wednesday to get this thing going, but they played A&M to double overtime yesterday. So the dead legs that you predicted during the first half absolutely came around. And Tennessee's just like Tennessee hadn't played yet. Tennessee's excellent defensively. Yep. And Texas, I think Texas has played pretty well today, to be honest with you.
They play great,
Yeah.
and I don't want to disparage Texas's efforts by saying their legs kind of gave out. They committed some turnovers throughout the course of the second half that looked like it was fatigue fueled in terms of like the oomph on passes, and Tennessee has dominated them on the boards. At one point, about maybe 5 minutes ago, I did the math, and Tennessee grabbed about a flat 50% of their missed shots. And anytime you do that, you're going to have a good chance of winning games. Keeping Tennessee off the glass without fresh legs is really difficult. But with what Texas has done from an efficient shooting standpoint, I mean, on the year, Tennessee's only giving up, their opponents shoot a 44% effective field goal shooting percentage. And in this game, they're at 54%. Right now, 10 percentage points above average, and that 44% that Tennessee holds teams to is the best in the country. So to be able to do that against that defense, and the fact that this is even competitive at this juncture of the game, I know they just got a pretty big bucket. They cut at least a single digits, but there's 52 seconds. It is impressive in its own. And look, I mean, this was a really good couple days for Texas, even if it doesn't result in getting into the NCAA tournament. They finally started playing their better ball. At a time you want to start playing your better ball.
They don't have to sweat it out. I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier.
They'll sweat it out.
Yeah, they're going to sweat it out now. I mean, I think they've done, they've done all right. And again, they're going to see their net ranking go up today, if only because they got to play Tennessee. So we'll see. But Gamecock fans, on that note, again, Carolina could make the NIT if Texas makes the NCAAs. We asked the flash poll question. 51.7% of you said sure. More hoops to watch. 20.8, and 27.5 questioning the existence of the National Invitation Tournament. Elijah will have a lot more on our YouTube channel throughout the weekend from his time up in Nashville. Great work, sir, all week long. You've done fantastic things for us and continue to have fun up there. We appreciate you. Ed Bird, thank you. Y'all have a safe weekend, especially if you're going to 5 Points tomorrow. We'll do it again on Monday. So long. And one final note from our friends at the Joint Chiropractic Centers. Listen, they have been doing this for a while, have Janet and Bob Keene here in Columbia. They want you to know that it's real simple what they want to do. Make you feel better, all right? Improve your overall health with affordable, convenient chiropractic care, help you maintain a healthy body, help you prevent reoccurring issues. If you've been bothered by back, neck, shoulder, joint pain, time to get back in the game. No appointments are necessary. No insurance is necessary. If you've never been, for just $29, a consultation, exam, and adjustment. Ask questions, see what's up. Once you're in the system at the Joint, if you're traveling for work, for vacation, to see the Gamecocks play, there are centers all across the country, and they'll know what's been done to you and what they need to do again. Harbison, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch, Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. Stop in and see them real soon. And remember, you don't have to feel bad to feel better at the Joint.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with one last traffic report here. Let you know what's going on the roadways. We have an accident over on Bluff Road at Highway 48 at I-77, one on Farrow Road at Highway 555 near Killian Road, one on Fernandina Road at St. Andrews Road, downtown on Gervais Street between Hugh G. Street and Millwood Avenue, Harbison Boulevard at US 176 at Broad River Road, and lastly, one on Old Garner's Ferry Road at Mill Creek Parkway.